everyone. I'm Melanie, also known as that lady in the yellow jacket. If I look familiar to you, it's because you may have seen me around at SCAT TV. So I'm not new to Somerville. I used to anchor Somerville Neighborhood News a little bit before COVID. I also hosted Bay State Biking News. I'm a long distance cyclist. I love everything about cycling, and that was a 1 hour show about cycling. I also hosted this show, The Lady in the Yellow Jacket, which I am revamping, and I am so honored that you are here tonight for my inaugural show. I'm hoping to bring to you untold stories that are happening in Somerville, Boston, Greater Boston, New England, the nation, and even the world. So if you have a show or show idea, or if you know of somebody doing something really special and they haven't gotten any media attention, by all means, find me. I'm across social media at Melanie Morris TV. I'm hoping all my shows are going to be memorable, but today, there's something very special about this show. On September 23rd, 2024, John Corcoran was riding his bike on the bike path along Memorial Drive when a car careened into the bike lane and unfortunately fatally struck him. And tonight, we are talking to his wife, his widow Barbara, and his son Jack. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I definitely appreciate it. And let me say this, everyone. It's a rough time of year. As I said, this was just last September 2024. So we're on the 1 year anniversary of John's death. And today is actually the 1 year anniversary of his funeral. So again, I thank you. I know it's a tough day for you. So we're going to eventually talk about the accident, but let's learn about John and how John was, and some funny things about John, some good things about your husband, your father. How did you all meet?
Well, we were both graduate students at the University of Pennsylvania. We lived in the same building, and actually our paths crossed when we were renting a video at a video store back in the days when people did that. So
Was this at Blockbuster?
it wasn't. It was an independent.
Okay.
But yeah, he asked me out. He made me laugh the whole first date, and at the end of the first date, he asked me out for the next night for the second date, and yeah, we went from there.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Nice.
So what are some memories about John that you want the world to know?
Oh gosh.
And while you're thinking about that, Jack, what do you want us to know about your dad?
He was a real family man. That was definitely his primary commitment always. He always made that very clear to us that he wanted to spend time with us, and even though his job took him away to traveling a lot, especially over the last few years of his life, he worked a lot out in Dallas, Texas. He always made an effort to be back every single day he was working, and whenever he was working, he would always call us every single night, and he made it a point to say that he loved both me, my mom, my sister, all three of us, to us over the phone every night. So that was always his primary commitment. And outside of that, yes, he loved exercise. He loved biking in particular. Biked all over Boston, both east and west, into Waltham a lot, into Cambridge all the time.
Into Somerville, yeah, that was his new place.
Yes, that was a ride that we were never ever able to actually do with him, unfortunately. And he loves his dog. He really loved his dog.
What kind of dog was it?
A little Havanese, 11 pounds, about this big.
So how long had you guys had your dog?
8 years.
8 years. Wow. So what did your dad do to make you laugh?
Everything. He has, he has so many little catchphrases that it was my mother's idea of finding all these little things that he would say. It's hard to even give an example because there were so many and they were just so random of just things he would say. Whenever we were going around a sharp turn in a car, he would always say coming in hot. Right.
Yeah.
That was just he would always say it. We don't know where it came from, and we've now compiled a list since he passed, a 4-page list of just phrases and little things he would say, and so that's been a way that my mother, my sister, and I have bonded since his passing.
And what do you do to make you laugh?
Oh my gosh, he did everything, and he had a really great sense of humor, and it didn't take much to make him laugh. He aside from biking and exercise, he did also love movies, and so he loved to watch anything comedy, and you could watch them again and again and laugh at the same jokes each time. So yeah, I think that was a big hobby for him too.
So let's talk about maybe the days before the accident. What was life like? What were you doing?
Well, that was like rather sad because on September 12th of 2024, he drove me to the airport and I flew to Austria to go visit a woman who had, helped us with the children, raising the children when they were little. So became a family friend. So I was over there visiting with her, and I came back on Sunday the 22nd. And so that broke my heart after he was killed on the 23rd to think that I was away during those final days of our marriage. And the thing that was odd too, actually, about me being gone during that time was that I was visiting a friend that I was very, very close with and had a lot of fun with in the past. This wasn't like a new thing, and I've had lots of trips independent from John, as well as a lot of family trips we did too. I couldn't sleep over there, and I can always sleep. I happened to be reading a book. It was a novel about a woman grieving her daughter, which was kind of a sad subject, but it was the only thing I had, so that's what I was reading. And I got homesick, actually, and even texted him. We have this text saved. Like, the Friday before, I was like, I just feel really homesick. I just don't want to be here. I'm having a perfectly nice time. We have, like, one of our big things of the whole thing to do today. And all I want to do is get home, just get on a plane and get home right now. And it was just like, okay, you're not going to do that because, but a lot of weird, instincts, Anyway, he picked me up at the airport and, we had a nice evening together. It was honestly, pretty average. He actually went out for a bike ride that afternoon while I was, going to the grocery store and showering and that kind of thing. But we had dinner together and watched a movie that I had seen on the plane that I thought he would like, which he loved, and went to bed. And because for those of you who don't know, I'm a veterinarian, and so our hours are kind of staggered a little bit. So on Monday the 23rd, I was seeing appointments from 1 to 7 at our practice in the South End in Boston. So it was around that morning, went for a run, and was gearing up to go in a little on the early side because I know I'd been away and there were going to be lots of phone calls and a backlog. And he was on a work call at the time, and I was hesitant to interrupt, but he had always told me to do that, and so I was like, well, that's his policy, so I did, and I'm glad I did. I just kind of whispered goodbye from the door, and he turned and looked at me and gave me a friendly wave, and then that was the last I ever saw him.
That was the last you ever saw him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did you hear about the accident?
So what happened was that, I finished the appointments at 7, but you're not immediately done. And like I said, there's a backlog of things. So I was catching up on records and all the, various paperwork things. John, a little frustrating kind of a thing with him. He would never bike with any identification or a cell phone, so there's no way to get in touch with him when he was out biking. But nevertheless, I'm leaving work at 8:30 at night. And so I got home. Actually, I got out of the car at 9:07. I actually happen to remember that. And the house was totally dark when I drove up. Okay, the dog was super happy to see me. Okay. And he wasn't there. And I was just like, oh, he's probably out on a walk, because that's something he would usually do. And it wasn't until an hour later, I was like, I have email to catch up on, right? You have all these things to do. Finally at 10, I'm like, for crying out loud, John, what's the deal? And so I called his cell phone. Although he wouldn't bike with his cell phone, he would always take it with him on his walk. And it rang on his desk. And I was like, oh, that's not right. And then I was like, wait, how many bikes did I pass in the garage? And so I looked out in the garage and saw that his new bike was missing. And he never rode it, ever. And so I called the police, and they came over and did their thing. and then they left at about 11. But I will say, I was getting a little worried. By the time they left at 11, I was super worried. I actually thought it was more likely that the bike broke down and he was like walking home than that anything had actually truly happened to him. Anyway, they left at 11, and then they came back at 11:45. They had me like send in pictures and things, and took a picture of his license and whatnot, and they were able to match him with a John Doe that was brought in DOA to Mass General earlier that evening. So,
Now let's talk about, you said he was on an e-bike.
yeah.
And I believe I read somewhere that he was a little slower riding. So he got an e-bike to maybe help speed things up?
Yeah, so what happened was that he'd been transitioning back from Dallas. He'd been working at home a lot, which he loved. But his firm was saying that they wanted him to be in the office a minimum of 3 days a week, which was a little frustrating for him because he worked in a 2-person team and the other person worked in New Jersey. And so what would it really matter if John was in Boston as home or Boston in the office? And we talk more about that. But anyway, he had the idea of getting the e-bike and thought that maybe if he was biking in and out of the office, like he loved biking, he did it almost every day, this would kind of combine his joy of cycling, you know what I mean? Like it was a way he'd get like that exercise in and that fun part of it in while kind of slogging into the office because he wasn't interested in taking the train or driving the car and the traffic and everything. Just a little over a week before he died, actually his firm did make an exception for him and told him he wouldn't have to go into the office. But by that point he had the bike for about a month and he found he really liked it because he was really slow. And now, it's, the pedals, it's like so easy and you can kind of really zip along. I suspect the night that he went out, I think he was hoping to kind of like do a quick tool around the Esplanade and then be back before dark.
So, Jack, let me ask you, I know that I've read your op-ed in the Boston Globe. First of all, how has this changed your life towards bicycle advocacy, and what are some of the things that you're doing?
Yes, so I've gotten involved actually since my dad's passing with Cambridge Bicycle Safety, which is a political group that operates here out of Cambridge. Cambridge, Somerville's neighbor. And they've been abundantly supportive since right after my father passed. They've been right there for me, and I'm very grateful that they were, and that was an established connection. And I've definitely made some friends through the group now too. But I've definitely kept up political advocacy through there as well, which is something actually I'd never really taken part in before my dad's passing.
And for our viewers out there, if somebody's wondering, or maybe they have some free time, or if they're wondering if they should get involved, or for people who say, well, you know what, I don't bike, it really doesn't matter to me, what would you tell them?
This impacts everybody. It really, really does. Safe biking infrastructure impacts the ability to drive, cars' ability to drive, pedestrians. I mean, this has taken a massive toll on my family. I mean, I still think, if a pedestrian were there where my dad was hit that day, I mean, the pedestrian, would they have survived instead? Likely not. So this infrastructure matters, and it affects each of us from day to day. I certainly didn't appreciate that before my dad's passing, and I hope it doesn't take any personal deaths for any of you to understand how really important this is to all of us.
And what you want, I know they did some construction in that area. Can you talk about what they did, what changes they made, and is there more they can do? And what do you want to see done?
Yes, they reconfigured how the bike. So how it works is that there's an elevated sort of area where actually is where my dad was hit. He was hit right in front of the BU boathouse on the elevated area, and then there was like a on-ramp for bikes that would allow them to come from like the main road on there. And my understanding is actually the car that came and jumped the curb to hit him, and so. As it stands, they reconfigured that to make that less likely to happen. They dug up part of the sidewalk and they didn't push it in necessarily, but they made the bike lane more conducive so that cars would be less likely to have anything like that happen again.
And for cyclists that were traveling west, like all of a sudden there was no more place for you because the bike lane narrowed, and then there were arrows that it was only for eastbound cyclists. So they did widen it so that the cyclists had space to go both ways. But
Is there more they can do, or what more would you like to see done there?
We think that a firmly separated bike lane for the duration of that road would increase bicycle safety from car violence substantially. We believe that might have been enough to save my dad, perhaps, especially if there's some sort of protective guard railing or anything like that there, or just an increased elevated portion of the bike lane as well. That would have helped to keep the separation between car and bike, and that would have been conducive towards more safety.
I know your dad's proud. As we mentioned, a car came from the road onto the bike lane and fatally struck John. If that driver is watching this right now, let's start with Barbara first, what would you tell him? Or Jack, whichever one of you wants to start.
I'm ready if you are not.
go ahead.
I would just like to say that every moment of peace that you experience for the rest of your life comes at the expense of peace for myself, my mother, and my sister.
I just don't understand why. Like, I'm told the driver came from, it sounds like Micro Center, so he came over the bridge. It wasn't like he was past the merge where the ramp comes up. So I don't understand what was going on that would cause you to drive up on the sidewalk like that. Like, why did this happen to him, to all of us? And it's not just me and the kids. I mean, John was missed deeply by his brothers and his sisters and the in-laws and the nephews and the nieces and the co-workers and his friends. Like, you know, one of his best friends from college did the Pan Mass Challenge and was just tormented on the bike thinking of John throughout the whole ride, you know? It's like, he's really missed by a lot of people, and he was such a kind, contributing person. Like, I would love to know why this happened.
And let me say, it's never a good thing. Cars, when you're driving, beware cyclists. Always beware. Whether you're opening your door, there's some cyclists who die because a driver has opened their door and they haven't looked over their shoulder. There's a young lady in Inman Square that died that way. So it's very important, if you are a driver, if you got a driver's license, you're behind two wheels, a car is a deadly weapon. And whatever you can do, I don't think anybody out there wants to intentionally kill somebody or wants to unintentionally kill somebody. But when it happens, it's on your conscience forever. So just take a little bit of time, take extra time, slow down, beware, and look out for cyclists. And now we've got scooters and e-bikes and so many other things in the bike lanes that are out there crowding our streets. So just take a little time. I want to say that Barbara and I became friends. We are friends. I'm friends with the family. Right before the funeral last year, Barbara had an idea, since John was cycling, to have cyclists be a part of the funeral procession. So what we did was, I got the word, I put a note out to all the cyclists in the cycling community to come. Barbara wanted us to be a part of the funeral procession, so if you are available, come on out and be a part of the funeral procession. And this is what happened that day, exactly 1 year ago today. put that together for you. I took those pictures after you contacted me, and I got everyone together, and I said, you know, I'm going to need to document this and share it with them. But I always felt that right after was too soon. So when you agreed to come on the show today, I said, you know what? It's time now. I think this is the perfect time. So clearly it's a sad occasion, but hopefully it'll give you some memories of people who, even though we didn't know John, that we cared about him.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. And it's an odd thing, but it occurred to me in the last 2 weeks that, you know, it's like something you really want to look back at the pictures of, but I didn't have any. And so it might be painful for me. It might be like a piece of this family history to get passed along, you know. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, and I'll make sure that you, clearly it'll be a copy, a part of this show that you'll get, and you can also watch this show on my YouTube channel, which is Melanie Morris TV, and I'll make sure that you get a separate copy as well. So we only got a few minutes left. What are some parting words? What are some parting words that you want to share about John, your family, your advocacy?
I will say, as far as advocacy goes, well, they don't belong to obviously a group or anything like that, but since this has happened, I'm not shy now. If I'm in an Uber and somebody just makes a right turn without looking in the bike lane, I actually say something to that driver and I leave them a negative review. You know, it's kind of and I think that shakes them up a little bit. Oh my God, okay, I'm getting judged by this, but yeah, you are, you know. I have also stopped my car and yelled at cyclists, you're on the wrong side of the road. That is very dangerous. You need to, you know what I mean? Because when cyclists aren't abiding by the rules either, it actually undercuts everybody here who wants to be a safe cyclist and enjoy it as a form of recreation or, you know, travel or exercise. And so anyway, my own small advocacy is individually shaming people as I go.
Whatever works, that works. We need more Barbaras out there. What about you, Jack? Any parting words?
Yes, we dearly miss my father, his husband, and this really didn't have to happen, and it shouldn't have taken his death for us to really care about this issue. It really does affect us all. And so I encourage you all to please pay attention. Please pay attention to local infrastructure, local politics. I encourage you to get involved, but please pay attention. This is important.
And I know you have a sister. We got 30 seconds left. You have a sister who's unfortunately couldn't be here today. You want to talk about your sister at all?
Yes, she's been remarkably strong through all of this, and we're very, very proud of her.
Yeah, she's still in her senior year in college, and I was proud of the kids for being able to stay on track scholastically. So she couldn't be here. She's got to get her homework done.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Folks, again, I'm Melanie. I'm the lady in the yellow jacket. And if you're joining us late, you can catch the show on YouTube. This was Barbara and Jack. They are the widow and son of John Corcoran, the cyclist that was killed on September 23rd of last year on Memorial Drive while biking, just tragically an unnecessary death. So we just want to remind people, if you're driving cars, just please be careful, please be careful. And you know what? I also get off my bike and I warn drivers too. So I have no issue with getting off my bike and warning drivers. We are going into a holiday, Indigenous Peoples Day. So if you're watching this, have a great holiday. Indigenous Peoples Day will be here before we know it. And again, I will be back weekly during this same time slot, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you. Again, at Melanie Morris TV. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.